This whole project started because we had a 50-year-old building that was not going to last the next 20 years.
Chichester Festival Theatre was purpose-built, but it was only intended to stand for 2 years. It wasn't really built by a team who knew how to design the theatres either. When we came to the project, we wanted to make it as easy as possible to do all of the things that they were already doing, but just much more easily.
Before we did any proposals for the building, what we did was a conservation management strategy, and through that we created diagrams for significance, denoting areas that could be retained or installed and repaired, highly significant areas, and areas which could give scope for redevelopment.
I think Charcoalblue provided a real challenge to our thinking in terms of we were resistant to a certain amount of change, particularly within the auditorium, particularly within the relationship to the artists on stage and the layout of the auditorium.
We started off talking about the auditorium and the limitations on the auditorium, and there was a great dialogue about especially the stage, how the stage should be modified, could be modified, might be modified.
We had I suppose a preconceived idea of what we wanted from the building, and sometimes certainly from our point of view we might be a bit insular in how we think it should work. Charcoalblue was very respectful of the knowledge bank within the building and the experience that people brought to the table, but at the same time not being afraid to sometimes challenge that and ask questions of the team here about whether we might consider doing it a different way.
What Charcoalblue are so good at is leading us to a decision.
But that process was great, of visiting other theatres and looking at how they've achieved it.
We all know that a fly tower would have been lovely. We know that it didn't work with this space. How do we then fly things in that roof? And what are the best solutions to doing that? And I think Charcoalblue led us through that process. And I think now we have a space that is as flexible and as user-friendly as it can be.
Post-renew, the rear section of the auditorium have been tilted up, so you get a much better view from the back of the auditorium. That's made a huge difference, again, to do with inclusion in the audience.
The project was able to reintroduce 100 seats.
It was Charcoalblue, through the design planning, sort of pointed out that we could get an orchestra in the middle, we could form a formal pit.
As a lighting technician starting, one of the biggest challenges really was the inaccessibility of the lighting rig. We've ended up with a lighting rig that is incredibly quick to get around because you don't have to wear harnesses, you don't need all that paraphernalia. And from the moment of a lighting designer saying, can I have a lantern there, we can nip up on a new access bridge very, very quickly, get to the lantern, focus it and be down in a quarter of the time that it took.
So one of the big changes we've made with the new extension is designing an enormous goods lift. Huge chunks can now come straight up to stage level or down into the basement.
When we're receiving touring shows in, that process is enormously quicker. Now we pretty much empty a lorry in 2 lift loads.
One big thing that we've done is take away all of the dressing rooms that were originally underneath the stage with no daylight and put them at stage level and free up that entire area underneath the stage so that it can be used as a scenic zone.
It's great working with Charcoalblue because they question proposals, so we have an idea and they then think of different ways of possibly doing it to intensify the idea and also bring the technical expertise.
We've got this brilliant building now, fit for the next 30, 50 years. And it's given us the ability to look further afield, to look broader in terms of how we program it, how we run it, how we staff it.
It's amazing to see the auditorium completely remodelled and transformed and how they're now using it. Seeing the stage being flooded and being able to get that boat in for way upstream was phenomenal.
I think we're really well placed to face the future with all of that holds, and I'm sure it holds more pain in terms of subsidies and things to create work, but I think we face that future with a certain amount of energy in terms of what the building will help us deliver.